Hello, my friends. I'm so happy to have you with me today. Today, I get to introduce you to Sarah Michelle Boes. And when I tell you this is a woman after my own heart, she's just incredible. Sarah is a medical parent. Her daughter has a heart condition. She is a nurse practitioner, and she's also a mental health advocate. She is so open, honest, vulnerable, and transparent about her own struggles with her mental health and how that has affected her medical parenting. She also brings this incredible lens of being a businesswoman and entrepreneur who has successfully sold her company and is continuing to build her own presence, her own way to support families. She's an advocate. She goes to Washington, D.C. to help advocate for children's rights in healthcare and making sure they get the research and the funding and the support and the medical care that they deserve. I could not be more excited to introduce you to Sarah. She's also a parent who gets it. She gets that preparing her daughter, although she's young, through play, through medical play specifically, helps her daughter cope so much with her different experiences. And she also knows that her child is going to change and grow and adapt, and Sarah is right along with her for the entire journey. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad that we met and that we became fast friends, and I can't wait to see the amazing things that you accomplish with Willow alongside you.
Hey friends, welcome to Child Life On Call. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a mom and I'm a child life specialist. If you're listening to the podcast today for the first time, welcome, and we want you to know that the conversations we have here are designed for parents whose child has received a medical diagnosis. I know it may feel extremely terrifying and world-changing even, but you're here now and you're about to hear from another parent who has had the same feelings that you do right now, and they're still standing. They had the courage to come here and share what it was like for them to hopefully make it a little bit easier for you. I'm so grateful to each and every guest and each and every listener who shows up here, and it's my privilege to host this sacred space.
My name is Sarah Michelle Boes, and I have a unique history before I became a heart mom because I'm actually a nurse practitioner and an entrepreneur. And I'm very grateful for both of those things because they absolutely served me in my heart mom journey. Crazy timing, I started a business during COVID helping other nurse practitioners pass their exam with less anxiety, which is cool. And then 2 years into that business, I was acquired by a bigger test prep brand, and I was 8.5 months pregnant at the time. And so I rode the highest high of my life. I was so excited. I sold my business. I did the thing. We had the nest egg. And then when I was 36, almost 37 weeks pregnant, we found out unexpectedly that my daughter was going to have not one, not two, not three, but 4 different heart defects. And not only that, she was going to have one of the most severe types of her heart defect. And so Meadow has something called Tetralogy of Fallot. And all I knew when I heard that term at the time that we got her diagnosis was what I had seen in nursing school, which was big, bold letters on a PowerPoint that said blue babies. And so my brain immediately started spiraling. I'm like, what exactly does this mean? What does it look like? All the pieces. And even with like my nurse practitioner background, I mean, I taught nurse practitioners, like I had done a lot of schooling, had a lot of expertise. I felt like I was really entering into a new ballgame entirely because I'm not a cardiologist. So I joke often with her cardiologist now. I know just enough to be dangerous. Like I can put the pieces together and we can talk about it. We can have intelligent conversations, but I have a lot of really pointed questions too, which is fun to explore with her team because they're like, what do you do? Who are you again?
That's so funny. I love that dynamic that you can have, like, just enough to be dangerous. And then I've talked with other parents too who have like no medical training, but you have to kind of just get that level immediately to be able, especially a NICU experience, right? Like there's so many different words that are coming out all over the place. So I love that you share that, like that passion for wanting to meet the team on that level because you really don't have another choice or option. You have to.
And my husband had to do it alongside me because I told him, I was like, it's great and it's awesome that I'm a medical provider, but I do not want to make any decisions about Meadow's care by myself. Like, I want it to very much be a team effort in every decision we make. But he worked with me in my business for a little bit. But before that, I mean, he was a semi truck driver. Like, he has no medical background whatsoever. And so, really, like, I felt like I was teaching him a lot so we could make like those educated decisions together too.
Wow, I love that. And it's not always so easy. And like, even just what you're saying now, the learning curve of the number of life changing or altering decisions parents have to make is kind of a little misconception about, like, you think the care team's going to give you this roadmap that says this is exactly what we're going to do and how she's going to get better. But like, lo and behold, there's actually a million tiny decisions you have to make throughout, and they don't always know where you're going to go.
No, actually, when we got her diagnosis, we have a really wonderful children's hospital here. They're like top 50 in the country for cardiac care, which was a massive shock to us, like have that so close to home because our first thought was we were going to have to travel. But within a week of getting the diagnosis, we were able to come in and see the ICU because we knew we were going to be spending time there regardless and talk to interventionalists, talk to a surgeon. But the weird part was, and really like my husband was like taken aback at first, was we didn't know what the plan was going to be. So we met the person who would do the calf if we were going to do the calf procedure. We met the surgeon if we were going to go the surgery route, but we really didn't know what Meadow's case was going to be until she was born, and they could really get a better look at her because, especially getting a diagnosis so late, like they tried their best to get imaging, but she was so big by that point, like it was what it was.
Did you have other kids at this time, or where did she
No,
fall in line?
no,
She's your
Meadow was
only?
our first and only.
Okay. Did you, during your pregnancy, have any feelings that something was going on, or was it kind of that total shock at that? Because 36 weeks is a little bit later than usual.
Yeah, I have a layered history because I didn't know it at the time. I actually got my diagnosis after Meadow got healthy, but I have obsessive compulsive disorder. And so I spent a lot of my pregnancy trying to tease out like what is my like typical anxiety that I live with on day to day versus what is gut feeling. But I tell people all the time, I felt like my entire pregnancy that something was wrong. And I had a lot more ultrasounds than normal because she was measuring a little bit small, which makes sense with her heart defects. But they said everything was normal, and I kept trying to lean into that, and I'm like, this is just me, it's in my head. And what ended up happening was I made it to almost my 3rd trimester, and I was looking at my OB one day, and I asked her a question, and I had been seeing this woman weekly for a long time because we had had gruff scans and extra stuff, and I bled while I was pregnant. I mean, I got, like, the whole gamut of the experience. And the way she answered, I realized that she had no idea who I was. And I was like, if something were to go wrong when I give birth, I don't think this is the human I want standing beside me making decisions. And so I ended up switching OBs in my 3rd trimester, as crazy as that sounds. But because I switched OBs, they're like, we're going to do another anatomy scan just in case. Like, this is a liability thing for us. And when they did that additional anatomy scan, they were like, oh, her heart looks weird. Like, that was literally the word they used. They're like, it looks weird, like, not exactly right. And, we'll send you the maternal fetal medicine. You can get the echo, you'll be back, no big deal. And then it started this cascade of, oh, there's something really, really wrong with her heart. So I ended up having 3 OBs by the end of my pregnancy because I had the original one, the one I switched to, and then my maternal fetal medicine doc.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your diagnosis too, because I think, when you're pregnant, there's so much unknown the first time experiencing. Even parenthood now is like, how much of this is real and how much of this is anxiety? It is so hard, and the line feels so thin, and it's so easy to go back and forth. I'm so glad that you trusted your gut and, you
Same.
know, yeah, that you advocated for yourself to find another doctor.
Yeah, it was interesting too, even after she was born, because obviously I had lots of anxiety about everything that she was doing and just trying to like tease apart for myself, like, what is a normal baby behavior and what is a
Mm.
heart baby behavior? Because I've never been a parent before. And even though I'm a nurse practitioner, like, this is a brand new experience for me, like,
Totally.
massive learning curve.
Yeah. How did you handle the stress of being a new mom, having a heart baby, and just managing all of that at the beginning?
I think me and my husband complement each other really well, and I'm really grateful for that. It makes us a great team in times of stress. And so he had never really had a hospital experience. And for example, the night that Meadow was born, she was the worst timing of all worst timings. She was born, they took her away, they stabilized her, they got her PICC line in. It took a little bit longer than anticipated. So it was hours before we got to see her again. And they started up a medication that would keep a hole open in her heart that we need to keep open until she had her first surgery at 6 days old. And unfortunately, what happened when they started that medication is it can actually cause episodes of apnea. So it can make you stop breathing a little bit. And so we walk in, they start the medication. She does exactly that, and she has to be intubated on the spot. And for me, I could start to reason and logic, even though I had just been induced, I had been in labor for 3 days, like all the chaos. Like I could use my medical brain, kind of like my primal brain at that point, to be like, she is not being intubated because she is dying. She's being intubated as a band-aid as we manipulate this medication.
Yeah.
But, like, my husband doesn't have that background. Like, he didn't understand that. So in his brain, he's like, the only people I've seen intubated are people who have died.
Yeah.
And we were able to really nicely flop with one another. And I could be kind of the logical part and he could be the emotional part. And I'm like, I know this situation sucks. But when we
Yeah.
get up in the morning, and I think we need some sleep and some food at this point. But when we get up in the morning, it will be different. And we're going to be able to like formulate a game plan and figure out how we want to move forward. And even just things like the monitors, for example, like I've been around all those sounds.
Yeah.
And for months after we left the hospital, my husband was still hearing the monitors. But for me, like that was almost old hat. So it was cool to navigate together. And I'm not saying that like he was emotional the whole time and I was logical the whole time. We
Right.
definitely had our flips and flops.
Yeah.
I gave birth to Meadow during 2022, and we were still in COVID protocols at our hospital. And the way that our hospital worked was you were only allowed a certain number of guests. And once a guest came in, like they were permanently on the list. And so we only had 3 spots. And we didn't want to choose between family of like, okay, my mom gets to come in, but yours doesn't, or that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So we just didn't let anybody in. And so that really kind of like solidified down like, this is us and we are a team and we're going to figure this out. And of course, like our families like brought us food and clothes and different things that we needed along the way. But
Yeah.
really, it was leaning on one another, surviving. And then once we got out, like, okay, like, how in the world do we process this experience, which we're very much still doing, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it evolves, right? It changes as
All
you
the time.
go, and it's nice to have a partner, no matter what that looks like, whether it's a spouse or a loved one or a family member to help you through it. And you do have to make hard decisions, not just with the medical care, but like your own boundaries. And that's what it sounds like you guys are doing.
Yeah. It was just here recently. I was talking to my father in law, who I adore, and he was telling us, and I just didn't even think about it at the time. He was like, you said one day that you could see the parking garage from your room. He was like, so sometimes me and your mother in law used to sit in the parking lot just to be able to see Meadow. I'm about to cry. I was like, number one, that is so precious.
Seriously, yes.
And number two, like, wow, you guys were holding your own grief too. And I just didn't even have like space to think about that at
No,
that time.
you didn't have the capacity to do
No, I
that.
just like had to get through.
You get thrown into the medical parent world. Like, there's no, like you said, it's day one of life and you're like intubating, right? So there's no turning back. You're in medical motherhood. What are some of the things that you wish you would have known before about the beginning? Let's say 3 months to 1 year, because that's really crucial for these babies.
I really feel like, it served me in some ways, but it really didn't in other ways. I felt like I overanalyzed every move that Meadow made. Now, part of that was an environment that was created for me because Meadow had her first surgery at 6 days old. and it's called a shunt. And the shunt is essentially like a patch for her to grow bigger and stronger and have like her big full repair where they really fix her heart. And her patch went better than like any patch they had ever done. It felt like we were in and out of the hospital in a couple of weeks. They prepared us to be there for 6 to 8 weeks. We were in and out in 3. I'm like, we're killing it. She's
Yeah.
doing great. And when we had our hospital visit and kind of were introduced to everybody, when the ICU attending said, the ICU is a roller coaster. He's like, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, it's going to be day to day. And so you really just kind of have to ride the flow and ride the ups when they're there, but also know that the downs are going to come, but we're going to find that next up too. But that wasn't really our experience with her first surgery. Like, she was intubated that first night, and that was really hard. But that was just a temporary thing. We were able to get her extubated. We were able to let her be a normal baby for a couple of days. That was cool. And then she had her surgery, and it went well. And we went home. But when we went home, we had something called interstage time. So we had oxygen monitors and hospital equipment and a hospital scale, and we had to submit how much she ate every day and what was her weight. And if she didn't gain 30 grams, we had to bring her in. She might be admitted. And so there's just all this constant like over analyzing of all the data. And what ended up happening for me was I felt a lot less like her mom and a lot more like her nurse. And I felt like the connection piece really lacked. And it wasn't because I didn't love my baby, because I absolutely love Meadow, but it was just hard to break apart the two when we were in this in-between time. And for those who don't know anything about OCD, it's not just hand washing. People think it's like compulsive hand washing every time I say it. But what OCD actually is an inability to tolerate uncertainty. And I was living in the most uncertain part of my life, because when will her next surgery be? Will her patch go bad? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And so every day I'm looking at this baby that is blue, and her oxygen at a baseline runs 75%. And I'm like, is today the day? Is tomorrow the day? Is our next appointment the day? Like, you really can't make any plans. But I tell you all this to say that when we went in for her full repair, which her patch did go bad, and of course it went bad over Thanksgiving weekend, which is incredibly stressful because will there even be anyone there? And luckily for us, they kind of had like a bat line, if you want to think of it that way. So it was somebody who always answered no matter what. And they were like, of course, please bring her in if her oxygen is 50, because that's scary.
Yeah.
But her second surgery was way more complex, and she had way more complications. And we rolled that roller coaster much harder that time. And because we had had such a good experience the first time, it wrecked me. I was like, I spent months like being her medical provider and being a little bit detached and trying to make sure she was okay. And then I felt like I was just lost like the 2 weeks after her surgery, because it was like everything that could have went wrong went wrong. And not to anybody's fault. It's a very complex, complicated surgery. But that being said, I just wish I could have like really leaned into, I'm just writing it down right now, and the up is going to come. But when it feels so dark, you're like, oh, that up is never coming.
It makes so much sense, and it's such an honest answer. And it's really easy to say the up will come, but when you're in the down, you don't know that it will come. And you hadn't experienced that up and down, like you said.
No, I'd only rode the up, and that was incredible. And I love that we had that first experience. But the night of her second surgery, she almost died in front of us. And I was not prepared for that. And not only that, but the night of her surgery, basically what happened is her chest filled up with blood to the point that her heart wasn't able to beat. And so they had to reopen her chest to relieve that pressure. And as a result of that, they just had to leave it open. So I don't even think I ever even considered, like, I might look at Meadow's chest and see her heart beat. And so for her chest to be open to the world for a week, I feel like I can't even really tell you what happened in that week. Everything was such a wash, and I'm like, how's this like even possible that this is medicine? Like, I feel like I'm like living in like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. And that it's on your child. There has to be some level of detachment there. It's just
unimaginable, and you were living it.
Yes, with my husband. We're both just
Yeah.
I would, like, walk past her bed, and I would try not to look at her because it was just, like, so activating to me to see her in that state, and because her chest was open, they also kept her really cold. So, like, even when I felt like I was, like I could get close and kinda, like, build up my comfort zone to be able to do that, to, like, try to connect with her in whatever way I could. I felt like I was at her funeral because she was like, she
Yeah.
felt cold to the touch, and it was just a lot.
Do you remember coming out of that fog and, like, when you started seeing, like, the inching up after that?
I remember coming out the fog for a moment when they told me that she had a brain bleed for the sheer fact of I guess I kept telling myself at the time, like, her heart's the only problem here. So
Mhm.
if we can get through this, and I hate using the word normal because it's so subjective, but like in my brain, I was like, she could have a normal life or she could have like a normal quality of life. So to like unexpectedly get the news that she also had a brain bleed and the uncertainty of that brain bleed as well, because they're like, she's a 4-month-old baby. So we don't know what this is going to look like for her
Yeah.
until she grows up.
It's one of the cruelest things,
Oh,
and a lot of NICU parents, you born with
hmm.
this brain bleed on this side, and it's always just the answer is always, "We have to wait and see."
And I'm like, I don't know how
It's
to
not
wait. I
good.
don't want to wait. I have no interest in waiting. Like, is there anything we could do today? But I felt like that kind of like snapped me back to the real world of like, okay, where are we at? What is happening? What is coming next? And then once they were able to close her chest, I was like, okay, we're making like some forward progress here. And she
Mhm.
still kind of had like some back and forth for sure. I mean, we were literally in the cardiac ICU for like almost 2 months, and we thought we were going to be there a week and a half.
Yeah.
So once we got her chest closed, I was like, okay, at least see the light at the end of the tunnel. It might be really dim right now, but I know we're not going anywhere with her chest open to the world. So this was at least that first big step forward that not only is it closed, but like she is handling it being closed. So that's a big
Mhm.
concern. Like, will they be able to tolerate? Will it have to be reopened? Like that first 24 hours afterwards is a really big deal.
And now a word from our sponsor. By now, I hope y'all know that when Lindsay and I choose sponsors for Child Life on Call, we're incredibly intentional. We only partner with companies that we'd use ourselves, ones that are truly worthy of your time, attention, and trust. Lindsay brings the medical mama lens, and I bring the child life specialist perspective. And reStickity is one of those companies that instantly clicked for both of us. As a child life specialist, especially during my time in the NICU, I was always looking for ways to help families make their baby's space feel more like home. One of my go-to suggestions is hanging up a sibling's drawing or family photo, something that says this baby is loved and this baby has a family waiting for them. But here's the thing, in the NICU, babies often move between bays and medical equipment can limit what you can tape and hang up. So I wished for a magic solution that would let us easily stick and restick family photos and artwork. Enter reStickity. I was ecstatic when I found this company. A brilliant, heartfelt solution that works across the NICU, pediatric oncology, and adult ICU, anywhere you want to bring a little warmth to a sterile hospital room. Even better, reStickity was founded by a mom and daughter team who know what hospital life is like. They understand the isolation and longing to make a space feel even just a little bit more human. These prints are high quality, velvety smooth, and beautifully designed to brighten hospital walls for as long as they're needed. They can easily be reapplied at home or wherever comfort is needed next. And because reStickity believes in the power of connection, they're offering 10% off for Child Life On Call listeners. Just use code CLOC10 at checkout. Head to reStickity, that's RESTICKITY.com, and use code CLOC10 at checkout. That code CLOC10 for 10% off is just a little extra light for you and your family when you need it most. I don't want to spend too much time thinking about that, but one of the hardest things is having to leave your child in the hospital, right? Like you go home, you go back to your
where her crib is and like your life. And it's like, am I living in two worlds? How are these both existing at the same time? While her chest was open and you guys were in that dark place, how did you move through day to day?
So we were actually in an incredibly unique position because I had sold my business. And so therefore we kind of lived there 24/7. Like me and my husband together, which I feel like for most families is unheard of and incomprehensible. But for me, the one time that I tried to leave was actually the night of her surgery because by the time that she came out and she was stabilized, I felt like I had no capacity left, and I was like, even if I go to a hotel down the street and get 4 hours of sleep, like, that 4 hours of sleep will be invaluable for me to make really important decisions tomorrow, and I know there will be important decisions again. But when I left is when she deteriorated, and because I was so tired and not my best self, I left my phone charger, so my phone died, so my husband's, like, blowing at my phone, I'm not answering, I mean, it he ended up having to call my father-in-law in the middle of the night to, like, come bang down the hotel door and come get me. Yeah.
Oh,
So that being said, after that point, I didn't leave. If he
you're like, this is where I live now. So, okay, talk about the logistics of that. Where did you sleep?
At our children's hospital, they have a dedicated ICU just to cardiac kids, which is so cool and so incredible. And it was dedicated by Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence is from Kentucky, actually.
Mhm.
And so we had basically like a twin size bed in there and a chair. And so we put an egg crate down on this like twin size bed couch thing. And we
Mhm.
would take turns. One night he would sleep on it, and one night I'd sleep in the chair, and we would go back and forth. And they even had a shower in the room. So they really made it like accessible for us to be able
Good.
to stay in that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I tell people all the time, because I do a lot of advocacy work now for congenital heart disease, is you are the expert in your child because you know all their nuances and all their little things. So, like, a medical team's not going to pick up in a 20-minute visit throughout the day. And so I feel like being there all the time, was it intense? Yes. Did we have to take breaks? Like, sometimes we would just go on a drive for like 15 minutes just to like get fresh air.
Yeah.
But it really, like, it gave us a lens to look at Meadow to, like, present different things to her team too, and I think that was really beneficial and that was really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you had a spot to sleep and to
Oh,
be there
yes. It was a big
if
deal.
you needed to be.
The NICU was
And
not the same way.
no, no. And every hospital is so different in their rules and what they
Mhm.
allow. And even every nursing shift is different, like what they have and what they allow. So Meadow has her chest closed. You guys are discharged from the ICU. What happens after that?
I feel like that was one of the most jarring moments of the entire experience because I've spent the first 5 months of her life, like, submitting things, monitoring things, looking for things, and now they're like, "Oh, she's good. We'll see you in, like, a month for your follow-up appointment," and I'm like, "But are you sure?" Like, I don't feel comfortable just, like, disconnecting her and being like, "Alright, you're good. Go into the real world."
Yeah.
And that was when I actually got my own OCD diagnosis because I just couldn't stop. Like, I would wake up in the middle of the night like a normal parent would. 'Cause, there are a lot of normal parents that have anxiety and they're like, "Oh, is she breathing?" So I would get up and be like, "Okay," and I would feel her chest, she's breathing. But with OCD, it's a little bit different because I might wake up in 20 minutes and have to do it again. And maybe the first time I felt her breathe 3 times and that was good. But OCD gets really insatiable. And so the next
Mm.
time I might have to feel her breathe 5 times. And eventually it got to a point where I was having to feel her breathe 100 times or 150 times.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I had at least enough like self awareness and wherewithal to be like, I think something's not right. I was like, I understand like PTSD, traumatic experience, medical baby. I was like, but this kind of feels next level to me.
Mm.
And so we literally probably had been out of the hospital a week and a half when I got my OCD diagnosis because I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't function. Like, we had survived. And then I was like, my whole body like wanted to fall.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It's like you think you're gonna get home, and then it's like we're just gonna get to be a happy family, and everything's gonna
No.
be great, and it couldn't be further from the truth, and that's hard to hear as a medical parent because you're like, "No, we just went through the hardest thing, remember?
Yes.
Home is supposed to be even easier." But
Mhm.
I hear it time and time again that it's like that week there's a whole recovery period that comes from being in the hospital, and it's sometimes really dark.
You have to give yourself just a lot of grace and self-compassion and space too. Like, I wasn't super great before then at giving myself space, but I was like, I just need like some breathing room from the situation. And actually, what we did was after we made it through like that month follow-up, had another echo, all the things, and her surgeon said the coolest thing. He's like, I don't think I'm gonna see her for a while. So do you like mind send me pictures at Christmas? And I was like, that was exactly what my brain and my heart needed to hear in this moment, actually, because for those who don't know about Tetralogy of Fallot with pulmonary atresia, basically she has a fake heart valve. Every time she grows bigger, she outgrows that valve. And so she has to have another open heart surgery. So she'll have at least 4 more in her lifetime, unless medicine catches up to her, which is why I do so much advocacy work.
Yeah.
But getting that kind of, like, all clear from him, like, "Oh, no, she's, like, looking really good." We actually went on a family vacation. It
Oh,
was the first time we, like, took Meadow into a restaurant. I mean, we even sat outside, but it was, like, a big deal to go to a restaurant and do, like, a normal
yes.
family thing, because during our interstage time, we did no normal family things. We lived in our house, and we kept her safe because her oxygen was 75%, like, a normal cold would have absolutely have killed her. So,
Yeah.
we just had to be really rigid so that I have, like, a little bit of flexibility of, like, "Oh, we can get in the car and we can travel away from our children's hospital, and we can go out to a restaurant, and we can sit on the beach and try to, like, recuperate and process and all the
Yeah.
things." And it was actually on that trip when I, like, turned to my husband, I was like, "I feel like we should definitely do a donation to the children's hospital." Um
Wow.
so it was in February of 2023 that we took that trip. I literally called the children's hospital on that trip. I'm like, "I don't know who I need to speak to, but I know I wanna make a donation, so, like, who do I talk to?"
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure they thought I was crazy, but our donation finally went through last summer in July of 2024, and that was a really kind of beautiful full circle moment for us because they ended up donating the Norton Children's Congenital Heart Institute to our daughter.
Oh
And
my
that's
gosh.
really beautiful to walk past. So they did like a mural of a meadow with like wildflowers and the sun coming up over the
After her
mountain.
warm.
Yeah, so it was gives my whole
Oh
body
my
chills every time I think about it.
Whoa, it's people like you. Oh, it makes me teary that I'm so grateful for. Like, after your darkest time, like, you're giving back
Well, we
to
really
others.
like we knew how fortunate we were, kind of like we were just talking about, because most people don't get to stay like that. And they're always thinking about like, how am I gonna pay the hospital Meadow literally had over $3 million in hospital bills from her stays. Now, granted, insurance covers a portion of that, but there was still a lot that we paid out of pocket too. And so a big part of our donation is like, how do we help other families? Because we met so many incredible families while we stayed there, and so many people who stayed so much longer than we did too.
Yeah. So many parents talk about, like, you're a part of this club you don't wanna be in, but the
Mhm.
members of the club are the most amazing people
So
and
cool.
family and friends that you'll ever meet. And
Yeah.
I wanna hear how Meadow's doing now, and then I also wanna hear about your advocacy work and how people can learn about what you're doing and support it.
Yeah. I love the thing I say to people all the time, every day, anytime anyone asks. So the thing I love to say about Meadow is she's the healthiest she's ever been. She is 2.5. She is so funny. She talks so much more than I ever would have anticipated a 2.5-year-old talking. Like,
Yeah.
literally last night at midnight, she woke me up and she was like, "I really want some ice cream." And I'm like, "I love that for you, but we are not doing that right now, thank you."
Like,
Uh,
that's hilarious.
but she is so curious and so playful and so funny, and I love every single moment of being her mom. Like, when we heard about the brain bleed, for example, and we didn't know how all that
Just
was gonna
thinking
shake
that.
out, I was like, "I wish I could see her now." Like, you never get, like, that
Oh,
future vision, but, like, her running across our farm, and like she was like trying to climb a tree the other day, and I'm like, babe, this is not gonna.
I was just thinking about that. Like if when you got that moment of the brain bleed news and you got to just hear her say, "Mama, can I have ice cream?" Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was the like the craziest part of the brain bleed scenario was that when we left the hospital and Meadow was like 5 months old, they set her follow-up appointment with like a neurodevelopmental psychologist, I believe, or something along those lines for when she was 18 months old. So it
Yeah.
was just all of this open time of like, I think she's normal, but I don't know for sure. And like, she's progressing.
Oh my gosh. Well, and the wait lists for a neurodevelopmental pediatrician are
Mhm.
atrocious years.
Yes.
So I wonder if
And
that was part of it too, right? Like
well,
you can't get in.
experience with the cardiac geneticist too. Meadow was over 2 years old, and like we were pretty much on the list immediately when she was born because
Yeah.
she had her own genetic testing. But we were like, but what if they want to have more kids? Like that's always like another discussion of, well,
Yeah.
we have another heart baby, and what is that risk? Because it was different going in the first time, not knowing. So this time there's a lot more at play.
Wow. And talk to us about your advocacy work that you do now.
I have so much fun doing advocacy work actually because I feel like I'm in this incredible position to have the medical expertise
Yeah.
and have flexibility through selling my business. And I have a little bit of a platform through selling my business and audience. And so I think like I'm just like absolutely primed to do advocacy work, but I really got into it like full force last year. I went to Capitol Hill with a group called Conquering CHD, and we like marched on Capitol Hill and we talked to our Congress people. It took the remainder of the year. That was just like the starting point, but we were able to get the Congenital Hearts Future Act reauthorized. And the Congenital Hearts Future Act does a couple of cool things. Number one, it just better tracks these kids because if
Yeah.
we're not tracking them, how can we make like educated decisions about what research to do and outcomes and all those things? But number two, something really cool and really unique that we're up against is that in 2009, for the first time in history, there were more adults living with congenital heart disease than children. And what that actually means is that these children are living into adulthood for the first time
Yeah.
in history. And as a result of that, we do not have enough cardiologists that are specialized in adult congenital hearts. And that
Makes
is its
sense.
own ballgame and its own expertise. And so that act is also to increase that workforce. And through my work with them last year, I joined the board and then I became the board chair for Conquering CHD. So I do a lot of work with them. I'm actually going back to DC next month. And I now also work a lot with the American Heart Association because of our donation to the Children's Hospital last year. They nominated me for their Women of Impact campaign, which I'm currently in the midst of. And
Amazing.
that's been really, really cool to be able to just like share our story and spread awareness and figure out really kind of what the American Heart Association has done for congenital heart disease too, because I feel like there's such a big organization that kind of like, I don't want to say it gets lost, but they do a lot of work with the Children's Heart Foundation to really like move things along. And so I'm just kind of jumping around through different organizations and getting my fill and seeing what I like. But having that act reauthorized last year, it was like this big like light up moment for me. I'm like, oh, like I had like actual impact and I
You
can
do.
make real change. And hopefully this means for Meadow that she will be able to have a same day in and out procedure instead of another open heart surgery someday.
Wow.
Because there's already clinical trials all across the country where they're doing just that. So I just gotta get it to her. But
Yeah.
it's a
Oh,
really, really, really cool time. Yeah, so I really just wanted to highlight you and how I found you because I was in a really scary spot with Meadow in the sense of like we had survived all of her surgeries and we had done all the things, but then we moved into the follow up world. And every time we went to follow up, she would have these big, giant reactions to having her echo done. And it just felt like no matter what we did, we weren't getting through to her. And I really like, I struggled because she was so tiny. And I'm like, at 18 months old or even younger than that, can you really understand and try to explain to a baby, like, you're about to have an ultrasound and, like, I know it feels big and scary, but, like, this is what's gonna happen and those sorts of things. But I found your account through a friend, and you were talking all about medical play and it not being too early to start that, and I was like, honestly, at this point, like, we're facing another procedure if her echoes don't start looking better, and we don't know if her echoes look bad because her valve is bad or because she's just so upset, and there's no way to really tease that apart. And we ended up buying a little toy echo machine. And so it was me and Meadow at 18 months old doing this on a doll. We even did it on her a little bit. And the next time we went to our appointment, we had been doing every 3-month follow-ups because we were unsure about this valve. But she was calm and she was relaxed. And we hung out. We did some stickers. Like, we did a couple of different things. And her echo looked so good. And her cardiologist was like, there's not even a need to do 3-month follow-ups now. Like, we can just follow up in a year, which I was like, that's crazy. I can't think about not seeing you for a year. But I'm so excited to not see you for a year. So thank you.
Yeah.
But I was really, really, really pleasantly surprised because I was like, I just didn't even think this was a possibility. And now that we're getting close to her annual follow-up, because we're a year out from that now, I had a whole container of medical toys that I pulled out. And I was talking with her nanny actually just this morning of like, let's make sure we incorporate this into the day. I was like, I'm doing it in my time with her, but you spend a lot of time with her too to make this a very normalized, expected process. So when we go to her appointment next week, hopefully it'll be no big deal.
I love that so much, and it makes my heart so, so happy. And it doesn't take much, and play does not have to be perfect. And I think we can get really into like, well, what do I need to cover when I'm playing? And so that she knows what's going on. And it's like, that defeats the whole purpose of play, which is
Don't
like,
overanalyze it.
don't overanalyze it and just expression and trying things out. And I remember one time I was doing medical play with a little girl, and she had a diagnosis of leukemia. And she took her medical play doll and she took a red pen and she like drew all over. And in my head, I'm like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah,
This is real bad. This is real bad. No, but like I'm just watching her and observing her. And so I'm asking her some questions. And I said, tell me about like, what are you drawing? And she was like, those are the fireballs. And I was like, oh, okay. Where did the doll get the fireballs? She's like, I'm drawing them. That's how she got them. And I thought, okay. And I said, do you have fireballs? She goes, no, I have cancer. Like, but it's just such that perspective of don't make the play be perfect. Just give an opportunity for it to happen.
Yep, for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much. And thank you for sharing that. I feel so honored to get to speak and spend this hour with you and meet you and learn about all the amazing things and Meadow thriving. What's something you learned about yourself that maybe you didn't know before you became Meadow's mom, besides OCD? Besides that, tell me something about yourself that you've learned and you've noticed.
I really felt like the experience, and I know I talked about it a lot in the beginning, but I really felt like I learned about me and my husband what an awesome team we are. Because you always imagine these different scenarios, like if we have a sick kid or if you get sick someday, or like what does that look like? But you never know how it's actually going to look until it plays out. And the whole time we were in the hospital, I'm just like, I'm so grateful you're my husband. Like, we are like the perfect team to do this together. And like, does this suck? Yes, so much. But it would suck so much worse with the wrong person.
Totally.
So that might sound trivial and silly,
Not at all.
it changed the whole experience.
I've been in a relationship before where I thought, if the worst thing happened to me, I do not want to be with you when it happened. And that was
Like
such a light bulb. Your OB. And then with my husband now, it's like when the worst thing happens, you're the first person I want to go to. And that you don't always think about that when you're picking your spouse or your mate or your partner. But maybe you should like think about when shit hits the fan, who do you want to have next to you? Oh, sorry, shit. I said that. I'm like, are the producers going to get me? But there's no Willer alert. It's just me.
I love that so much.
Oh, man. Well, where can people follow along with you and follow Meadow's story and just learn all about all the amazing things that you are and you do?
Yeah, I am on all the social media platforms, but I'm actually trying to build a community on LinkedIn right now. So I would encourage people to
Okay,
find me on LinkedIn because
great.
I've been doing a lot of writing about our story and kind of about advocacy work and what life looks like now because I love painting congenital heart disease in the terms of Meadow's story because she is doing so well.
Yeah,
And also on Instagram, like yesterday on Instagram was just like me and Meadow out on the farm. And so it's kind
love
of
it.
like more real life, and that's fun too. And then last spot, I actually have a whole Heart Mom page in my website. So if you just go to sarahmichelleboes.com, and Boes is spelled Boes because people always spell all kinds of ways. So
AOES. Okay, that is good
yes.
for us to know.
Yes.
Sarah Michelle Boes. Well, thank you so much to you, to your husband, and to Meadow for letting us have this special time with you. And I'm so grateful to know you. As a parent, you want to be there for your child, especially when it comes to their health. But healthcare can be overwhelming and confusing. The good news is child life specialists are experts who help families navigate these challenges. But often our support is only in hospitals. So imagine if you had access to these valuable tools and resources all the time. You would be able to understand medical procedures, explain them to your child, and help them feel less anxious, which also makes you probably feel less anxious. So, when your child visits the doctor, has surgery, or has a medical procedure, having the right information and support can make all the difference. You, the parent, can be prepared to answer their questions, calm their fears, and advocate for their needs. Child Life Specialist tools are ready to be in your hands right now through our app Support Spot. All you have to do is go to the iOS or Android store, type in Support Spot. We are giving all of our listeners on this podcast access to the app for just $19.99 for an entire year. You are going to have, I'm not kidding, 7 years worth of resources and support and information that we have been building at Child Life on Call at your fingertips. With these tools in your pocket, you can transform the way your family experiences medical care. Parents, you deserve to be informed and feel confident in your child's healthcare journey. And by having access to Support Spot, you can ensure that your child feels supported and understood no matter what medical challenges come your way. Head to the link in the show notes or go to your app store, type in Support Spot to download it today. For those of you who are joining us today, I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I am a child life specialist. And the suggestions and tips and resources that I talk about with parents on this podcast may be great for you and they may not be right for you. So, the most important person you can talk to about getting support is your care team, your doctor who knows your story and your child's story. So, regardless of maybe what I mention or what other families mention here, we're not licensed therapists, we're not doctors. We're having a conversation about what the parenting journey has been like. So, please keep that in mind as you listen today.